Back in 2010, Kenya introduced a new constitution. And let me tell you, this was so much more than just a legal document. It was a promise. So today, we're going to dive into two of its most powerful promises: the complete redefinition of your rights as a citizen, and a totally radical new take on who really owns the land of the nation. We have to start with this quote because, honestly, it's revolutionary. Think about that. In just one sentence, it completely flips the script on how land had been viewed for generations. It says you, the people, are the ultimate owners. This single idea really sets the stage for everything else we're about to talk about. And yeah, we're calling it a promise because that's exactly what it was. It was a promise of a totally new relationship between the government and its citizens, a promise of dignity, of justice, and, a return of power back to the people themselves. So how did the Constitution actually start to deliver on that huge promise? Well, a massive part of the answer lies in its brand new and very powerful Bill of Rights. Why was this so important? Well, it was a direct answer to a long history where people's basic rights could just be overlooked or, even worse, ignored. The 2010 Constitution was meant to draw a clear line in the sand, to create this kind of shield for every citizen that just couldn't be broken. This brings us to a really fundamental question, right? We hear the term Bill of Rights thrown around all the time, but what does it actually mean, especially in this context? Okay, the key thing to get here is this. A Bill of Rights is not a gift from the government. It's a list of rights you are born with. They are inherent. The Constitution doesn't grant them to you, it protects them. And it makes them incredibly difficult for anyone, including the state, to mess with or take away. And this quote just brilliantly spells out the why. This isn't about some abstract legal idea. The whole point, written right there in the Constitution, is to preserve human dignity and to promote social justice. These rights have a real, practical, and profound goal. All right, now that we understand the purpose behind it, let's get a little more specific. What rights are we actually talking about here? So the Constitution guarantees a whole bunch of civil rights. These are the absolute foundations of personal freedom. They make sure you're treated equally, that you're safe from being detained for no reason, that you can believe what you want to believe, and that you have the freedom to live and move anywhere you want within your own country. And then there's this one, a cornerstone of any real democracy, the right to freedom of expression. And just look at how broad this is. It's not just about what you can say. Crucially, it includes your right to seek out information and your right to access information that the government holds. I mean, that's a huge tool for transparency and keeping people accountable. But, and this is a really important but, that freedom isn't a free-for-all. The Constitution is super clear. Your right to express yourself stops where it starts to infringe on the safety and the dignity of other people. It is absolutely not a license for war propaganda, inciting violence, or hate speech. Okay, here's a term that might sound a little complicated, but it stands for a really simple and powerful idea: habeas corpus. Basically, it's your fundamental right to challenge your own imprisonment. It means the state can't just lock you up and throw away the key. They have to justify why they're holding you in front of a court. It is a critical safeguard against tyranny. Now, let's switch gears a bit. We're moving from personal rights to something that is just as fundamental to Kenya's identity and its history: the land itself. For generations, the land question has been one of the toughest, most contentious issues in the entire nation. The history here is pretty clear. A tangled mess of old laws and, let's be honest, corruption had turned land, the nation's most precious resource, into a source of deep division and conflict. The 2010 Constitution had to tackle these deep-rooted problems head-on. So, what was the answer? It wasn't just a minor tweak. It was a complete overhaul. An entire chapter of the Constitution, Chapter 5, is dedicated to creating brand new, clear, and fair rules for land in Kenya. The very first step to finding a solution was just to bring some order to the chaos. And to do that, the Constitution created a really simple but powerful system. It classified every single piece of land in the country into one of three distinct categories. Let's break this down really quick. First, you've got public land. Think national parks, rivers, roads, stuff that's held in trust for everyone. Second, and this was a huge innovation, is community land, which for the first time formally recognizes ancestral lands held by different communities. And then finally, there's private land, which is what most of us think of as just, individual ownership.
This simple clarity laid the groundwork for a much more transparent system. But, just classifying the land was only the beginning. The Constitution also took direct aim at a system of land ownership, or tenure, that had created massive inequality for generations.
And here it is. This number is an absolute game changer. The maximum time you could lease land was slashed from a staggering 999 years all the way down to just 99. Now, why such a dramatic change? Well, a lot of those 999-year leases were relics from the colonial era. It created a system where land could be locked up by the same interest for centuries, driving inequality. By dropping it to 99 years, the Constitution aims to break that historical pattern, ensuring land eventually cycles back into the public pool for future generations. And to oversee all of these big changes, a powerful new body was created, the National Land Commission. You can think of it as the referee in all this. Its job is to manage public land, advise the government, and, this is so important, to investigate historical land injustices, with the goal of finally starting to heal some of the wounds of the past.
So, we've seen this promise of fundamental rights, and we've seen the totally new rules for land. But what does it all really mean when you bring it together? Here's the bottom line. The Constitution provides the tools. It's a blueprint for a more fair and equitable nation, one where every single citizen's dignity is protected, and where the country's most valuable resource, its land, is managed for the benefit of everyone. Which really just leaves us with one final big question. A constitution can provide an incredible framework for change, but the document itself is just ink on paper. The ultimate challenge, and the ultimate opportunity, is figuring out how all of us can make sure these powerful words become the lived daily reality for every single Kenyan.